PR Connections Radio presents. This episode of We Have the Power is brought to you by Classy Communications, PR, and Advertising. Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and non-profit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success.
Well, welcome to another segment of We Have the Power. I'm your host, Brian Gardner. This is the program that works to establish in your mind, it's already in my mind, that we must never lose our freedoms. Today's program is going to be about why is America so important in this world today, and our Constitution and Bill of Rights, right after this important message. If you have the proper tool, usually things just go better. And one of the best tools in keeping our young people away from drugs and alcohol abuse are the booklets from the Drug-Free World Truth About Drugs organization. Now, they have a series of booklets. Certainly, this is a drug that is out there, marijuana, and also they have it in Spanish. These booklets are free. You just go to drugfreeworld.org and you can obtain these booklets and share them with your family members, your friends. And this is a way to make sure they have the proper information, because these booklets do not say, don't take these drugs. They say this will happen to you if you do. And there's also a compilation booklet that has a series of different topics in there. One is alcohol, one is ecstasy, cocaine, crystal meth. We know that inhalants can be abused, heroin, LSD, and even prescription drugs can be abused. So use the right tool, get these free booklets from Drug-Free World, and avail yourself and your family members, especially young people that you know and are in your family, of these booklets, so that we protect our young people and our loved ones from ever getting involved with drugs or alcohol abuse. Can't maintain a free country if people are abusing alcohol or taking drugs, although evil people who make money on that activity would love for more people to be involved with that. Now, the subject material for today's program is why is the United States so important to this world and to everyone really in this world. Let's talk about the beginnings of this country in 1700 and 1776, when we got our freedom from Britain, from England. Thomas Paine had written a book called Common Sense, where he talked a lot about the fact that individuals are supposed to be free within their country. The government is supposed to maintain the roads and keep the people safe, and not meddle in the business or dictate the religion, the politics, or the ideas or the actions that their citizens are involved with. That is not the role of government. And that book was a huge bestseller and led to the formation of what we are the only country that has a constitution and a Bill of Rights like ours that talks about freedoms for the individual. Now, sometimes people get this wrong a little bit. I'm going to adjust this camera just a tiny bit like that. Sorry about that. People oftentimes get this wrong. They think that the Constitution gives them certain rights and freedoms, and the Constitution is doling it out to you. You have these rights because the Constitution gives them to you. No. That is something that I want to clear up immediately for anyone who has that confusion. A person in this world, in any country, no matter what the leader of that country says, this is going to be the religion. This is only things that you can say. No, that is absolutely untrue. You have the freedoms delineated in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights because you are a living, sentient individual. Okay? Let me state that again clearly. Because you are alive and can say, I'm alive, and you are sentient, you have these rights. You know, a deer cannot really say, hey, I'm alive. What am I doing in the forest? A tiger cannot say, I'm alive. I better go get some food. They're not at that level. Human beings are. And because of that, you have these freedoms. Now, when this country was started, they said, let's write down these freedoms that are inalienable. That's in the Constitution. It says, hey, these rights are inalienable. That means you have these rights. We're just reminding you, okay? So in any country, let's take a look at this. Australia, you cannot have guns. That's a violation of a basic right of self-defense. I would not want to live in that country where you can't have guns by your door or anywhere you want in case someone breaks into your house. We guarantee that right with the Second Amendment. We say, hey, the right to buy, to have arms, shall not be infringed. Now that brings up an interesting point. Every Congress member and every senator holds up their hand and says, I swear that I will support and defend the Constitution. Any politician, Republican, Independent, or Democrat, who has ever voted to water down our Second Amendment rights is in violation of protecting the Constitution. They are in treason and cannot hold the office to which they were elected. Now, if that law, which is truth, got implemented, whoa, a lot of politicians would be out. And they should be out because they have worked to weaken the Constitution. And they took an oath that they would not do that. It's something to think about the next time you go to vote for the person you want to be your representative or your senator, or in years to come, who you want to be president. Look and see if they're absolutely standing up for this Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all the freedoms that we have in this country. Because you go to any other country, you are not going to have these kind of rights. Now, a lot of times, really good things come from adversity. You see, the reason that our founding fathers put into the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that somebody could not just walk in your door, start looking around, start, investigating without a warrant, because the British were doing that. You watch historical shows on the birth of this country, the development of this country before we won our freedom during the war. The British would just come in and say, okay, I want that, I want that, I want that for our troops. And of course, that experience led our founding fathers to include that in the Bill of Rights and say, hey, you cannot do that. A policeman can pull you over. They can't really start searching in your car unless they have probable cause. But to do a proper search, they would have to get a warrant and say, Judge, there's enough evidence here. This person has drugs in this car. We need to get a warrant. And the judge will look at the evidence and go, yeah, you're right. Or no, you're not right. There's not enough evidence here. I'm not going to issue a warrant. Those are protections we have so that the government just doesn't become something that can just come in and look at everything in our life and tell us what to do. Freedom of a religion, the same thing, and I have been a Scientologist, a Scientology parishioner since 1979. My wife and I traveled halfway across the globe to Germany with other religions and members of our faith, Scientology. And we went there for a religious freedom crusade because the country of Germany was saying, We're only going to allow this religion. We said, that's not right. No, that's not right. Freedom of religion in Germany. Yeah, but we don't have a constitution here, Brian. We don't have a Bill of Rights here. It doesn't matter because you've got individuals there, citizens who have these rights, despite what the head of Germany says. So we went there and we passed out newspapers about the crimes that Chancellor Kohl was doing, the harassment they were doing of my religion and other religions. And today there is religious freedom in Germany. Now, when I came back, my wife and I looked at each other and we said, this is really something. 2 Americans, and there were more than, but let's just take us. 2 Americans can go halfway across the globe, take part in a religious freedom crusade, and the whole country of Germany, with all the other people that joined in from different religions and all of my fellow Scientology parishioners who traveled to Germany, we were able to make a change in a government, 10,000 miles away or whatever it is, and Chancellor Kohl was not reelected. At one point, it got so ludicrous that if you were a Scientologist, you had to wear a black armband or something. If you were a Scientologist and you worked in the government, in some administrative position, you had to have an S next to your name. It sounds like Nazi Germany to me. Now, all that got canceled. We were not going to put up with that. And if it was another religion that was being harassed, we stood up for them. They stood up for us. Hey, religious freedom. Now, I think that story and I was detained by the ministry police for about 20 minutes. It's amazing when you have an American passport, they really don't mess with you too bad. I had a friend from Australia and a friend from, I think, Poland. They were actually held overnight, but you have an American passport, they just don't mess with you. And this policeman was saying all this stuff about, America's not so good. I said, I had been coached on not to argue with the people and stuff. But when he said that to me, he was trying to, goad me into arguing. I said, sir, I'm just here to make sure that religious freedom is available to you, me, and everyone. And the policeman standing next to him kind of went, whoa, he's not going to take the bait and argue. So, it's interesting. We made a change with the religious freedom crusade we did and created religious freedom. Now, what irks me is these people, I'm the head of Dogamba, it's a country. Okay. And here's what I decide. We're only going to do this religion and you can't say these things and you can't have guns and we're going to come in your house anytime we want and all that. I don't know who they think they are. No, I'm sorry, President whatever, you don't get to make those pronouncements. Well, you're talking about Americans. Now, I'm over here in this foreign country and I can set up any rules I want. Well, you can, but I would encourage the people to leave your country because if you're not going to provide freedoms for them, you're in violation of what they already own. They own these freedoms because they're alive and they're a human being. Okay. And then this leader comes in and says, oh, here's all these things that I'm going to set up with this country. I have often wondered why could we find one country in this world that would adopt what we have here in this country? There isn't one. There's what? You hear about in the Olympics, 164 countries, and nobody guarantees the rights of individuals. Well, that's because the leaders, aren't doing particularly ethical things, and they don't want to let the people vote because they know they'd get voted out. I used to be an Amway distributor years ago, and I'm proud of that. Those products are good. But I'm not here to talk about Amway. I'm here to talk about when people who were Amway distributors started to go into China. They had websites in China, but You would have your website shut down if you talked about freedom, the United States, rights, all that stuff. You could not even mention that. I think you could have the American flag. I'm not sure. But I just went, what a bunch of crap that is. Because China is a communist country and they dictate what you can do, what you can't do. We never, ever want to see that happen here. If this country falls under the guidance and dictatorial powers of somebody who doesn't believe in freedoms, we're screwed, because who's going to help us? Who would come to our aid to reestablish the freedoms? Nobody. That's why it is very important that you listen to my next sentence. Taking any steps whatsoever to make sure that our freedoms continue is absolutely vital work. Now, does it mean you have to quit your job and stand on the street and pass out flyers or something else and disrupt your whole life? No. But each of us have to do something, small or large, okay, to preserve these freedoms. Because if they go away, number one, there's no other country to go to where those freedoms exist. And if this light of freedom gets extinguished, did you see that? It gets extinguished, we're in trouble, because then they will come in your house without a warrant. You won't have guns so you can protect yourself. You will not be able to go out and say what you think about the current leader without being, Mr. Jones, come with us. Why? Well, you've been saying negative things about the president. Come with us, please. Otherwise, we'll restrain you if you don't come with us. And suddenly, that person is gone, never to be seen again. And let me tell you, that's happened in many countries. Somebody starts popping off, talking about the leader in a country where there's no freedoms guaranteed. Come with us, please. Not good. So what can you do? If I'm pushing you to do something to preserve these freedoms, what can you do? Well, you can keep watching this show, because I will talk about these issues and more things you can do. The first thing to do is educate yourself about what your freedoms are. And if you have kids, they're probably in public schools. My gosh, the brainwashing centers of America, they're not being taught what their freedoms are. Get them to turn off their phones, turn off their video games, and have Constitution night. Tuesday night, we go over the Constitution. You can get free copies of the Constitution or online. Go over with them what their freedoms are. Make sure they understand, and make sure they understand how horrible it would be if those freedoms went away. They don't think in those terms. There is going to be another earthquake in Los Angeles. It's going to happen, because those plates keep moving. How many people really have earthquake kits? Well, they go, I'll do it at some point. Well, maybe it won't happen in my lifetime. Put off, put off, put off. Same thing with the freedoms. Oh, no one's going to ever go against the Constitution. My God, who would support them? Well, okay, probably not. But we certainly don't want to see that happen. You want to educate yourself and your kids about what are our freedoms, because they are not getting that in the public schools. The evil people who have destroyed our educational system do not want to have to deal with a population that knows their freedoms. Too hard to control. They want them, looking at video games, looking at their phone, can't even have a conversation with another person anymore, don't even care about politics. That allows the evil people to continue their evil in Washington. They don't want people going, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing over there? They don't want people like that. No, they want people going, yeah, whatever, man, fine, yeah, whatever. I don't even like politics, yeah. I just exist as long as I have, my car, gas, food. I'm happy. I don't care what you're doing in Washington, you know. Then they wake up one day and they thought they could do this or that or something else. And they go, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones. That's no longer legal. We passed that a few years ago, changed the Constitution. You can't do that anymore. You can't own a gun. You can't, go on an interview show and say what you want to say. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. So go over. That's the first thing you can do. Go over with your kids and your spouse, if you don't have kids, what does the Constitution say? And get a dictionary if there's some words you don't understand in there. It's important. The next thing you can do is when you are being asked to give your vote to a person running for office who is going to represent you and your community, if you're going to vote, which you should do, if you're have not been driven into apathy on purpose by the evil people in this world. If you're going to vote, then take a little time. Usually people work, 9 to 5, okay, in the evening. You have some time. If you find someone that you kind of like, you think you want to vote for them, make sure they give you through their office or go online, find out what they stand for. And if you get to go to one of their meetings, ask them, well, what is your viewpoint on the Constitution? And if they go, oh, of course, yeah, it's great. Yeah. That's not a real answer. Because you would want to follow that up with a question like, well, are you going to support every part of the Constitution? Make sure it doesn't get watered down so we lose our freedoms. Of course. Oh, yeah. That's a hollow answer. You would want to hear somebody saying, of course, those freedoms are important, and I'm going to do everything I can if you give me your vote to make sure that those freedoms are not diluted ever. That's the kind of answer you want. You find a person like that, Democrat or Republican, long as you can look at them and see that they're going, oh, sure, yeah, Constitution, yeah, that's a good thing. Get this person out of here. Quit asking these questions. That's the kind of person you don't want to vote for. They're being covert. They're being fake. If you get a response from someone you think you want to vote for, that yes, the Constitution is important, I will always stand for that. In fact, I have a track record of standing for the Constitution. Look up his track record or her track record. Vote for that person. That is something you can do. Doesn't cost you any money. Doesn't really take much of your time, a little bit, but it's time that's well invested because you know that yourself, you will not lose these freedoms. If you have kids, you know that they will grow up and raise their families in a world where the freedoms are still respected and intact. Now, the next thing you can do is you can write letters to the editor. They're always looking for well-written letters, and that puts a message out there that you have written this letter. Many people are going to read it. You might change their minds if you talk about, hey, let's make sure who we send to Washington are really going to protect our freedoms. You can start a community group. Start a community group in your neighborhood. Get to meet your neighbors. Hey, we're going to start a little group. We're going to go over the Constitution. We're going to, and make it where Republicans, Democrats, or independents are all welcome. Yes, there are differences in those groups, but set those aside for a little bit and say, what are the common things that all of us can agree on? Freedoms. We have a right to protect ourselves, guns. We have a right in our home to be secure unless they have a warrant, on and on and on like that. And start a group that you get some discussions going, maybe one night a week, for an hour or so. And then people will be better voters. We will get better people governing us. We will not see our freedoms diluted. Now, it's a pretty big step if you were going to run for, especially as a Congress member, a national Congress member, but you could start out, if you really want to get into politics, of working at the state level. Every state has representatives and a Senate, and you could try to get elected there and stand up for what you believe in. And a lot of people, I think, would go, great. Let's vote for Sally Smith, George Jones, whatever, because you're communicating good things that, freedoms are important and that sort of thing. The other thing you can do is you can work with a local school board and say, are you teaching our kids about the Constitution? Oh, no, that's kind of an old document. It was written so long ago. We don't really go over that anymore. Talk to the principal, say, I'm going to take my kid out of your school and put him in a private school that I know is teaching the Constitution, unless you straighten up and start working on this. Now, I don't think one person is going to change their curriculum, but then you got to get in touch with the people that set the curriculum, and you go, hey, you set the curriculum. I want my kids and my fellow kids in my community to be taught about the Constitution. Well, we don't have it in there right now, and that would take a lot of work to get it in there. Well, how do I get it in there? I want to get it in there, and I will get it in there. Well, the first thing you need to do, and all this hogwash about hurdles that they're trying to put in front of you to stop you from getting this in the curriculum. But it can be done. And maybe the school you're in is teaching the Constitution. Go in and volunteer the day they're teaching the Constitution. Make sure they're not saying, now, this is the Constitution. This is an old document. Guns are dangerous. We really shouldn't have those. And freedom of speech, if it upsets somebody, you really don't have a right to say, oh my gosh, the thinking about this. Do you know that high percentage of college students feel that you should not have freedom of speech if you upset somebody? Wow. Have our college students been bamboozled, perverted, and brainwashed? Yes. I'm sorry if you don't like what a person is saying. They have a right to say it. Now, I'm not talking about screaming fire in a crowded theater. That comes under responsible communication, okay? Now, you really can't arrest someone for screaming, fire in a crowded theater. I mean, maybe it's a misdemeanor or something. But, our founding fathers didn't think they had to put responsibility in as part of your freedom of speech, But that's something you can do. Get in touch with the curriculum, the people who set the curriculum. And if you go in there with 3 or 4 or 5 parents, and the thing you don't want to do is come in there all agitated. You're a bunch of idiots. When you put this in there, you're just going to create this. They're going to put up a wall in front of you. They're going to say you're rabble rousers. You got to come in there with manners. Very important. And say, look, we're 12 mothers who have checked out. We volunteered. We checked out what you're teaching the kids about the Constitution. It's either minimal, zero, or you're perverting it by saying guns are dangerous. We really shouldn't have the Second Amendment. That's not right. And so we're here, 12 of us, to find out what can be done to get the curriculum changed where you're teaching neutral. Here's what the freedoms are in this country, not their viewpoint. I don't think we should have guns and we should cancel the Second Amendment, Do you know that really a gun has never killed anyone? You might think that's a shocking statement. It's the people pulling the trigger, okay? Guns handled properly do not kill people. Guns handled properly can protect you when you're on your property and someone is violating that particular boundary. You tell them to stop. I'm telling you right now, somebody comes at you with a knife through your front door. Sorry, had an itch there. Somebody comes through your front door with a knife like this and they're threatening your life. You have the right to say, stop, or I'm going to shoot you. I don't care. I'm going to kill you. I hate you. You can shoot them because they are threatening your life and you have a right to defend yourself. but not in Australia. I don't believe in England there's a very easy way to own guns. You know, somebody knocks in there to go, what would you like to take? Go ahead, I'll get out of your way. Do you want the dishes? Do you want the watches, the jewelry? Go ahead, you know. That's how stupid it gets to be, you know, when you can't defend your own home. Boy, I'm sure glad our founding fathers were smart beyond belief. So the other thing you can do is you can exercise your rights. If you want to have a gun to defend yourself, be responsible. Take a gun course so you know how to operate that gun properly. Just like you take a driver's test to show them that you know the rules and you can, you know, drive that car properly. Sometimes you have to take a test, right? Driving test. So make sure you do the same thing with a gun, which, you know, it is something that is dangerous if it's not handled right. Same with a car. If you drive your car crazy, you could kill somebody with your car or hurt yourself. So be responsible if you're going to exercise these rights. If you're going to exercise the freedom of speech, you know, use judgment. You know, do I yell at somebody's, you know, in somebody's face, you know, and that's not communication. But exercise your freedom of speech. Go to civic meetings, go to the schools, say, you know, you're not teaching our kids properly here. And these 12 mothers and I are here to get that changed. And then we are pushing life into this Constitution and Bill of Rights. That's what will get it to be here for generations to come. And it's important. It's important. We are very lucky to be in America. We don't know what it's like to live in a country without freedoms. We had a little bit of vision of that when Europe was under Nazi Germany. Boy, you talk wrong to one of those German soldiers, you're toast. So you can imagine it, but we've never experienced it because we have these freedoms. Don't let them ever disappear. Whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, or you're not really into politics. We're not talking about politics here. We're talking about freedoms, and they're important. Do something every day, every month, every week, something to keep these freedoms alive so that we all can continue to enjoy how wonderful this country is. Thank you for watching We Have the Power. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific for more discussions and guests from time to time on important subjects so that we don't lose our freedoms, because guess what? We have the power to not lose our freedoms. We have the power, not the evil people. Thank you for watching.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.